Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Henka Boys. I'm James and this is Shaun.
This is me. Yes.
That is Shaun indeed. Today is a very special podcast because we do have some sumo news. Yeah, it's not good. Also, we have a guest, and it's my brother.
No, we don't care about that. You can't tantalise us with the sumo news.
Well, no, Shaun, this is all part of the strategy. You've got to lure them in with a hook, and you know, then we start rambling on about what we're drinking, etc.
I'm sorry.
Nearly inconsequential guest that we've brought on.
Fair enough.
Peter.
Woo!
Hello.
It's Peter. Hello.
Yeah,
I'm inconsequential.
Yes. Now, you're my brother.
Yeah. Our mother forced me onto you.
Yeah. And you're here because basically we're going to be having a talk about mental illnesses. And Peter has a mental illness and we'd like to ask him some questions about it, basically.
Yeah, but there's sumo news.
Yeah. But first, Peter, as the guest, what are you drinking today?
You see, I don't usually drink. I very rarely drink any alcohol. But they told me
it's a requirement.
Yes, they told me I would have to. So I started off with a banana liqueur because it basically tastes like foam bananas.
It's very nice, actually.
It is. It's very nice. And now I'm drinking vodka and lilt. Give it a little shake. Hear that? Oh, it's gone everywhere. Yeah. It's gone everywhere.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay, I've got it all over my mouse mat. Right. I'm very happy about this.
Well, this podcast is off to a boring start already. And what would you rate this vodka, the bit left in your glass?
Well, I like lilt. Lilt's good. And because of the vodka, it tastes slightly worse than lilt.
Nice.
So
that's weird because you're actually drinking it with Sprite.
Oh. Well, same thing. Yeah. I like Sprite too. Yep. It's pretty nice.
Keep saying good things about Coca-Cola products. This is good.
Also good, Coca-Cola, if you want to sponsor anybody.
Yeah.
You know.
What's your thoughts on Pepsi? Rubbish.
Oh, disgusting.
Yeah, the worst.
Oh, Coke's the best. Coke forever. Now, I'd give this probably like a 4 or 5 because it's not even cold, really. Yeah.
But
it's not been in the fridge long enough. It's a bit warm.
Right, it's not cooling down as it sits in front of you.
No, it's not been in the fridge for very long.
What would you have given the banana liqueur?
Oh, that's like a solid 7 or 8. That's right up there, and I know how much you love 7s.
Let's go with a 7 then for the meme potential.
Yes.
Shaun, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a bottle of Ruby Port. Sainsbury's own brand.
Excellent.
But I'm a big fan of Sainsbury's own brand port. I'd say it's got a bit...
Not the shop in general.
Not particularly.
Although that is another sponsor.
Yes, if you're listening. I love your port. Keep it coming. I actually prefer it to some of the more well-known brands of port, Dow's, Cockburn's. It's got a bit more of a sharp attack to it, a bit of bite.
Okay.
So, yeah, I love it. Can't get enough.
How much did you pay for it?
I think it was £7.15.
Ooh, and what would you rate it for that price?
Oh, it's going to be Do I go there?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go there. I'm going to give it a 10.
Wow.
It's literally flawless.
The first 10.
Flawless, yes.
Absolutely flawless.
But I'm a big fan of port. So,
right, I'm drinking a Pinot Gris from New Zealand. From Roaring Meg. It's called, and I think it's made by Mount Difficulty. Yeah, it's good. It's nice. It's fresh, refreshing. Nice Pinot Gris. I think I paid about £12.
Is that like slang for Pinot Grigio?
Interesting you said that. Well, it's the same grape. Pinot Gris is made from Pinot Grigio. However, they call Pinot Grigio Pinot Gris when it's of a different style. And that's usually a bit less fresh and a bit more sort of substance.
Is that because they've taken out the Geo, and just left the Gris in?
That's right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Without all the
Geo
Geos,
definitely sounds more fresh than Gris, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, so it's just a different style, basically. It's nice. I like it.
Okay.
For £12, a little bit on the pricey side, but I reckon I'm going to give it a 7.
You guys, we've started something, but we can't finish with this whole seven.
Not everybody can afford Sainsbury's own port, Sean.
I'm talking about things that won't finish. The May Basho.
Because unfortunately, it will also not start.
Mm.
No. Peter, what are your thoughts on this news?
Well, my first thought was that was an amazing segue. My next thoughts were, hooray, I don't have to listen to you talk to me about sumo and try and get me to watch the Basho.
So I think we should take a moment's silence. That's long enough.
Yeah, I'll add it in post, the silence. 10 minutes.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, skip ahead if you're not into taking a 10-minute silence.
Already happened.
Yeah, well, before I get any more confused, let's move on.
You, Peter, out of 10? Okay. We do at 10. We do a 0 through 10 drunk rating.
All right. Well, yes, I'm a huge fan of the show.
You've watched over 2 episodes, I believe, now.
I have watched half of 3 and all of 3. So, basically your number 1 fan.
No.
Okay. Well, I'm a massive lightweight, as I do not drink. That is the only regard in which I am a lightweight. But I would say I'm probably about a 6.
A 6? Wow.
6?
Well,
already?
Well.
By my standards, I'm a bit lightheaded.
Jeez, it's 9 a.m.
We have fun.
I reckon I'm at probably a 2 currently. Not great, Shaun.
Yeah, about a 3. Haven't had much pre-drinking for this episode.
Yeah, I sort of started drinking almost as we began.
Well, we've started filming early, sorry, for you guys, haven't we?
Yeah.
We have.
Yeah.
We like to mix things up. We don't want to be stale or stagnant.
Oh, Pete. Pete.
Yes.
Look at that door.
That door?
Do you want to grab the handle? Just open the door there.
Open the door. I'm opening
take
the door.
Shaun's hand.
Oh,
Lead him
I've
out.
got your hand, Shaun.
Outside. I'll come with you. I feel a bit like
Loosen your grip, please.
And oh my god,
here.
it's beautiful out here, isn't it? Look at all these flowers.
Oh, it's lovely.
Some of them aren't even dead.
It's only the poem patio.
Poem patio. Of course, I have written a poem for today's momentous, splendiferous, superfluous occasion.
Now, I hear that you're not very happy with this one. Is that true?
I'm not, but I'm a very harsh critic on myself. And I was trapped between emotion and humour. And I'm not sure I've conveyed either of them adequately.
Okay, well, we'll be the judge of that, I suppose.
Yes. Are you ready?
Oh yes.
I've tentatively titled this poem OCD poem.
Wow.
Um,
Very,
Here we go.
very creative.
How many times, you say, do you wash your hands a day? You need a grip on your life, or you'll be holding a knife to your wrist or throat, leaving behind a note. People will miss you. Trust me, it's true. Can't touch this, can't touch that. Take a deep breath, you prat. Are you taking us for fools? Why does life have so many rules? It started when he was young. Lies dripping off his tongue. He did not understand, feeling completely unmanned. He just keeps counting. His fears are mounting. There's no end in sight. He must continue his fight. Let's check here. Let's check there. Cupboards are empty. Drawers are bare. Under your bed, beneath the sheets. What is lurking in the streets? Mental contamination, eternal damnation, an intrusive thought, irrational onslaught. Is there light ahead or a world of dread? Keep your head high. The end isn't nigh. The end.
Oh, sudden end.
That's good.
That was really good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I especially like the part about being a prat.
Yes. Yeah. Take a
'cause
deep breath, you prat.
Yeah, it reminded me of Barry from EastEnders.
Oh, Basil.
In what way did it remind you of our dear friend Barry?
Well, the word prat has many sort of associations with a character such as Barry from EastEnders.
Oh, of course, because he's Pat Butcher, Pat. I get
right,
where you're
yeah,
coming from.
Exactly.
Of course, one of his relations.
Yeah. It's just a nice word. I could envision him saying it. Prat, he might say.
Oh, you prat, Pat.
To which Pat would say, "What, me?" And he'd say, "No, Pratt."
And it'd be Chris Pratt, yeah.
Or they'd laugh.
Oh,
And now moving on to our main event. Peter.
That is me.
Following that lovely poem, you also have OCD. Is that right?
Yes, this is correct.
Now, what is OCD to you?
I'm going to start with a little backstory there, because it is obviously different to everybody. But for me, I am also autistic. And this is believed that people who are not diagnosed as autistic sort of make this world around them that's governed by OCD. The rules come from their own rule set, really, that they make, not themselves necessarily, but through the OCD. So for me,
like what?
Things like certain ways you must touch things, how often you'd have to touch each thing before moving on. Yeah, just
is this like a compelling feeling, like, oh, I really need to do that? Is it like you're about to sneeze, or I mean, what is it?
It's fairly similar to a sneeze for me. It's something that I feel like I have to do. I don't really know or understand why I have to do it. But if I don't do it, it just feels like there's going to be so many unlikely consequences that I myself know are completely ludicrous. But it just doesn't feel like it is worth the risk.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. That'll the little interlude there. So, Shaun, do you have any questions for Peter, a legitimate OCD man? Also has
a man.
A man. You also, yeah, like you said, you are also autistic, although that isn't classified as a mental illness.
Yeah.
Usually.
So when you were talking about the consequences of not performing an action, are they actually things you think about as a real thing, or is it just an abstract idea, or are there specific consequences you believe will happen?
Well, you see, it varies. With something like, if I don't check that I've locked the door, personally for me, I count to 6, so everything is done in 6s. So if I don't check that I have locked the door, and then let's say somebody broke in through the door that I hadn't checked because I'd left it unlocked, I would forever feel responsible for that. I would I just wouldn't know how to deal with it. And I'd feel like that all came because I couldn't be bothered to check.
Right, and counting everything in 6s, are you not worried that you might summon Satan?
Oh, well, you see, this is something that has happened.
Is it?
Oh,
You have
Let me
summoned
tell you.
Satan before.
I am Satan, my child. Yeah,
Okay.
I've stunned you.
Yep.
Yep. There's the autism coming in there.
Yep. That's pretty awkward.
Cut.
Well, that's what I'm bringing. I didn't know where to go with that.
Have you got any more questions, Shaun?
Oh, I've got questions aplenty.
Ask a question.
I can ask a question. Like, we're trying to raise awareness for OCD on this episode of the podcast.
Yeah. I think
And a lot of, yeah,
Sorry, no, go on.
a lot of people I feel think it isn't as big a issue or a real issue. Could you explain to our listeners why, for example, OCD stops you from getting a job? Let's say a job in an office somewhere. Talk me through the issues that you would face
Well,
on a
I'll
day-to-day
start by
basis.
saying something that you have both heard me say hundreds of times. OCD has become fashionable, which is why people don't believe it's as big a deal. Everybody thinks they've got a little bit of OCD,
Oh my God,
as they say.
OCD.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful Valley Girl impression.
Sorry. Hang on. One of my books is not alphabetical on the shelf. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
Oh, I couldn't live with that. I just couldn't live with it.
No.
There was a B like in the D section.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm
It's
so
triggering
sorry.
my OCD so hard right now.
Yeah. I was scared. That was bothering me.
Oh, sorry, Peter. That
Oh, no, that's all right.
Just a slight OCD attack now.
Oh, yeah, you had to deal with it.
We did, yeah.
It was a very good demonstration there.
So continue, Pete.
Yeah, and it's a shame, really, because people seem to think that it would be good to have it. What they don't understand is the consequences. So, for instance, for somebody that might say that they have a bit of OCD who couldn't get a job in an office, they could say perhaps, oh, well, because everything won't be filed how I'd like it, like books, for instance. And you'd ask them why. And they'd say, well, because it wouldn't be right. That doesn't come into it with me, but that is what people seem to think. That is what OCD is. The OCD isn't actually that. It isn't thinking of the filing, right? It is the consequence that comes from it not being filed in that way, not the act of having it filed. Does that make sense? Was that hard to follow? Yeah, I can be very difficult to follow at sometimes. I will apologise for that.
You're always turning left, turning right. You're a nightmare to stalk.
Oh, don't stalk. But yes, so people think that the OCD, to summarise it, the OCD is wanting things filed properly, whereas it's actually viewed as the OCD being the consequence that comes from not filing it
Or
properly.
the perceived consequences,
Yes.
even if there's no real world.
Exactly.
consequences.
So to me, I could not get a job because the moment I leave the house, it is like I am contaminated. It's like this wave of contamination just sort of overtakes me, right? Now, I could just go and shower and that would be fine, right? But this contamination to me could be spread. So if I was to go out to work, I would get contaminated and then I passed it on to somebody, right? That is the negative consequence. I have made somebody else unwell through my actions.
But
Right.
what if they don't know they're contaminated or they don't know they're unwell?
We see, this is where I know, and I think everybody knows, that it is completely irrational, right? I'm aware of that, but it has been over 20 years now of sort of drilling it into myself and following these rules. And it's almost now just like, if I were to suddenly decide, if it was nonsense, like not worth following, then I have wasted 20 years. But in the same sense, if I do stop following it and it turns out to have been true, then I have enacted the consequence on somebody else in trying to break this sort of pattern.
Right. But you must know. Do you know that it isn't true? Logically?
Logically, yes. In my
You
mind,
still feel.
yeah. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, you can become contaminated. So it is possible. And even if there's a 0.1% chance, it means it is possible. It doesn't matter how low it is to me.
And what is the contamination? Is it just the act of stepping outside immediately contaminates you?
It's not being in my sort of, it's not being in my sort of controlled environment. Yeah.
Right.
Like,
So you know
you'll
everything that goes on in the house.
Yeah. It's James will know from being at home with me, I have my own chair, things like that. I know exactly what happens with that chair.
And we can sit in his chair, but strangers cannot sit in his chair.
Yeah, although
Fair
some
enough.
do, some insist on the. Yeah, not everybody views that as normal. I know we've had this conversation before, and I believe you're very similar in that way.
Yes, well, I am a recovering OCDer, if there's such a thing.
Oh, OCDer, I like it.
Yeah. And that was one of my main issues when I was younger, is strangers or anyone that didn't live in the house coming in and touching stuff, sitting on the sofas, using our cutlery. And then I'd get into a panic. I haven't checked which cutlery I'm using. It could have been the cutlery they used. And
why is this such a big perceived problem for you two? Or I guess, why was it a problem for you, Shaun, and why is it still for you, Peter?
I luckily managed to shake most of my OCD problems when I was a young teenager. So I don't think my brain ever got to Peter's point where it sort of thought about all these things and tried to rationalize them. So my sort of, 10, 11-year-old self was probably when it was at its worst. Maybe a bit older, 12, 13 maybe. I don't know. It was the fact, like, if I'd touched it after they had, even if it had been clean, I sort of felt like I had a bit of them or wherever they'd been in me. And that thought was just all-consuming. Like, I couldn't possibly do anything else. Like, I'd just put a fork in my mouth that someone else had used, My mouth would feel strange. I can't really describe it any clearer than that.
The same for you, Pete?
Well, you see, Shaun and I have talked about these things very often, and we are quite different in a lot of the things we do. But I'd actually like to follow that up with a question, because I've never thought of this before.
Mm.
How were you when you were younger with eating out? If there was if you went to a nice restaurant with cutlery, for instance,
I'd
instead of McDonald's.
never bothered me. I never thought of it once.
Huh?
No.
It was only when it was your cutlery.
Yeah, or the household's cutlery. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because I actually knew a person had touched it, whereas when you're out, it's sort of, other people use it,
Yeah.
but you've never actually seen anyone use those specific ones in front of you.
I think you'll agree with this. There is quite a big chunk of OCD that is based around some form of control, right? And so your cutlery, you can sort of control who has come into contact with it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're out, it's out of your control, and therefore the worry sort of subsides because there's nothing you can do.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're the same.
That's a good way of putting it. It's like sitting on a chair out or something. You're like, well, there's nothing I can do about this. So even the irrational OCD brain can be a bit rational in certain circumstances because.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what would you think of like an extreme, like an extreme kind of, probably quite medieval sort of system where you just expose people with OCD to completely alien environments for like extended periods of time and keep moving them around? Would that help, that sort of thing?
I think that depends on the person and the mindset.
I also think age has got a big thing to do with it, because I'd pretty much stopped the majority of mine by the time I was about 13 or 14. I think if I'd let it continue, I'd probably be in a similar situation to Peter right now.
But I do also believe that from conversations Shaun and I have had, some of your rituals have just sort of been buried below the surface. It's where you don't think about them all the time.
Oh yeah, I still count.
There.
I still count when I eat and clean my teeth and dry my hands and after a bath and stuff. But that's just so normal to me. I don't consider. It's very odd to me that anyone doesn't. But it doesn't affect my life in any way. That's what I like. I'm obviously still OCD, but none of it is severe.
You're functional, shall we say?
Yeah.
So how would you say that OCD has affected your life, Peter? Because it's had a really profound impact on your life.
It has. But I don't know how much of it is the OCD or the autism. Because...
Right, so should we talk about that? Like, you are autistic. You're I'm not sure where you exactly landed on the spectrum. It's quite
it was like
autistic, right?
I was slightly below, like 2 points below the average autistic male.
Oh, okay. So you're quite lightly autistic.
Yeah, somehow.
And how do you think that your OCD and your autism interact? Is it a destructive relationship?
Well, yeah, definitely. But I've been told many things by different doctors, such as, people with autism can develop OCD, like I said earlier. I've also been told that by the time you're through your adolescent phase, it's sort of too late to find out. The damage to your sort of mindset is already done. Like for me, the OCD.
Right.
So it's difficult to know whether to view it as a byproduct of the autism or as a separate issue that is the all-consuming issue. It's a very tough sort of tangled web.
Your OCD was diagnosed fairly late. And your autism was diagnosed even later, although we as a family suspected it for probably...
It was a running joke.
A decade or so before.
Yeah. A decade.
Well, I think so.
Well, I know that Mum was trying to get me tested for it as far back as being like a toddler.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like nearly 20 years ago.
When were you diagnosed as being autistic?
About a year ago now. So when I was 20.
And when were you diagnosed OCD?
I believe I was 16.
16, but you'd been suffering from it for a few years before that.
Yeah, at minimum, like of it being quite prominent, was about 5 years. Whereas before, it was just sort of viewed as my funny little ways of doing things.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was, I think it's fair to say, it was quite
Well,
destructive
I can
to
remember.
our family
Yeah, it
at
was.
the time.
Definitely.
Because nobody could really understand what you were doing. You didn't understand why you were doing what you were doing.
It was a pretty awful time.
And it just got worse and worse until eventually, when you got diagnosed as having OCD, then eventually everything sort of fell into place.
Yeah.
Would you say that the medical system, did it fail you during that time?
It definitely did earlier on. I've got quite lucky this time around, but anybody from the UK who has been in the mental health system knows that it is a long, slow, grinding process. Like, I went there 3 times for the OCD to try and get help, and twice I was told that I could deal with it myself and sent home. It's difficult not to view that as a failing from my point of view. But from their point of view, I probably just didn't match the criteria to warrant whatever assistance they could give.
And
Right?
Shaun, were you ever diagnosed, or
No, I wasn't.
so you never went through the sort of medical system?
No. I'm glad I managed to. I just sort of told myself I have to stop this.
You've told me before, it was when you were moving up to senior school, right? And you thought, I don't want to be the guy in the corner doing that.
Yeah, because it was probably last year of junior school, year 6, was probably when it had hit its peak. I just sort of over the summer holidays sort of forced myself not to do certain things, and after a little while, I was like, nothing that bad actually happened, you know. So I just sort of worked at it from there for a couple of years. And then most of the ones which sort of negatively impacted my life sort of got forgotten about.
Yeah, but you see, that's where Shaun and I are different, and we've had quite a few discussions about it, because he says, why don't you sort of try the cold turkey method? But for me, I have tried in the past, and it sort of seeps back in. Like, for me, I can't seem to figure out how to keep it out, which I think is probably due to the way my brain works. Shaun saw it as this bad thing, and he made the sort of decision, let's say, to cut it out and to really try and stamp it out. Whereas for me, I sort of seem to rationalize it as time passes. And that's how it sort of spirals. There's hundreds of different types of OCD as well, is important to mention, I think. We're not talking, like we're saying, we've both sort of had OCD, but really they are most likely had completely different problems when you look at it on paper. There are hundreds of types.
Presumably some types of OCD you can sort of live a fairly normal life with. Others would probably cripple you and leave you almost bedridden.
Yeah, I'd assume so. Fortunately, I'm not at that stage. But yeah, I would assume some people literally cannot face getting out of bed.
Without still trying to argue with you, because we've gone over this before, do you feel like if you had something planned, something to occupy you, would you possibly find the cold turkey idea more feasible if you had a job to go to and other responsibilities?
Yeah. You see, it's impossible to conclusively say one way or the other.
Yeah.
But from previous experience with similar things, what usually happens is I do extremely well for like a couple of months, like at the most, and then something quite minuscule to somebody else will happen, and I will completely sort of tombstone back down to where I was before. And so I've sort of stopped trying to do that because of the sort of disappointment that comes from hitting that bottom again.
And the fallout, I guess.
Yeah.
Pete,
Yes.
are there any aspects of being an autistic, OCD-ridden man that are a bit uplifting? Maybe something unique about you that you don't think other people sort of experience? Something happy?
Well, there are many things that, well, you, for instance, James, find insanely boring. I think we all know what I'm talking about.
Are we
here.
talking about RuneScape?
Pretty much. Yeah. But like, there's many games like it. There's many things in real life like it.
So
very
our
slow,
readers should
grindy
know,
processes.
Peter can sink hundreds of hours in a single day, which I don't even know that was possible. But hundreds of hours in a single day.
Multiple accounts, James.
Multiple accounts, 3 accounts going at the same time. Of
I once had 5.
And he just never loses his concentration, really, except when I talk to him and he dies.
Yes, you killed many of my One Life accounts
and
like that.
You find that genuinely enjoyable, don't you? Just sort of sitting there for hours and hours.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things within the game that I don't enjoy, but for the most part, sort of slow, monotonous grind. Did I say that right? I think I did.
Monotonous, yes.
Yeah, there's like a lot of monotonous things in life that I sort of exceed at, all the way back to my childhood. Like, one of my earliest memories is you were playing Gran Turismo, James. You needed money. You got me to run the circular track that was very short, like 15 times to get the money on the game. Because you couldn't be bothered to do it. And I loved going around that same track.
This is another thing. You have a peculiar memory for little details. You're always telling me about conversations we had 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm like, I have no idea.
Memory is pretty spectacular when it comes to useless things.
Yeah. If you need anything useful, go to someone else.
Yeah. But if you want to remember what you had for breakfast 16 years ago, who's your guy?
Yeah.
Oh yes, I am.
Yeah, you can't trick Peter with pretending you did something or didn't. He'll be like, "But you always said you liked that." How does he remember that?
So I guess the final sort of question I have, I don't know if Shaun has any more questions.
I do have another 17, but I guess I can cross some of them off.
Well, yeah, start crossing. One of the final ones I wanted to ask was, are you happy, Pete? How are you doing in life? Are you happy? Would you get rid of your OCD or your autism if you had the chance to?
Well, short answer is yes in a second, but obviously there are up and down sides to it, whereas I've only experienced one side of it. Right, so to me, getting rid of it would mean I could live the normal life, I could get a job, etc., etc. Most people hate their jobs. So let's say I was given a month of each and told, at the end you'll have this decision to make.
Okay.
I've got no idea what I would pick. But from my perspective right now, it would be nice to get out in the world.
And what about just your autism, though? I feel like your autism is part of your personality, and I wouldn't have you. Yeah,
I think if without it, I would be extremely boring. I think.
Well.
Yeah. All right. Yes, I'm boring now. Yeah. No, I don't know about that because it can actually be a benefit in some ways. Like they say, you've got to find what it sort of enhances. Autistic people usually excel in a specific area. If you can find it, then you're sort of in a good place,
Yeah.
I think that is sort of a part of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Shaun? What, like, looking back to your sort of childhood, you obviously kicked it out completely, but do you regret the way that you did it? Or do you think you did it the right way? Or
I don't regret it because it worked, didn't it? Obviously, I don't know,
Well-
maybe if I'd seen some mental health people or something, I might, like I say, I might be better now, but I really don't think it holds me back in any way. Obviously, it might do in some sort of subconscious ways I'm not thinking about, but I don't say I have any regrets about the way I've handled it.
that's good, to be fair. I think that the way Shaun dealt with it would be like the dream, to be able to sort of stamp it out. I think anybody with any mental illness would love to have the willpower to be able to stick that out. It's quite
I
abnormal.
can't really talk
Yeah, I
now because
can't.
there's a window cleaner cleaning my window. It's probably quite loud.
I can't.
Good.
Yeah, I can't really remember to give you a full answer because it was quite a long time ago now.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember how difficult it was or how long it took. But I know it
You
was
said
gradual.
over the summer holiday. That's like a month and a half.
Well, I made rapid improvement in that time, but it went on for 2 to 3 years, I'd say, before I sort of reached the point I'm at now. So I've got the first 6 weeks or so were massive improvements. It's like, I suddenly don't need to touch this so many times before I use it. That happened very quickly.
So you're happy not having OCD now, but would you eradicate your past having OCD, or do you think that was a formulative part of your
No, I
life?
wouldn't. Definitely wouldn't get rid of it. No, who knows what I'd have turned out as if I didn't.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, it couldn't have got much worse.
But instead, you're here on the Henka Boys.
You saying that the Henka Boys is not a success?
So, I mean,
the Henka Boys is an amazing success.
It is, yeah. We sort of do it just because we enjoy it, but it turns out at least one random person's watching.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's not always me.
So what I would say to you now, Pete, is what are you currently doing to improve yourself in some way?
Well, right now we're on this lockdown, so there are no appointments, unfortunately. I was, for this lockdown, doing... Oh my God, I've forgotten the name of it. It's CCBT, and I can't remember what the first C stands for. Complex.
Yes.
It's complex. Yeah. Complex cognitive behavioural therapy. Which I'd say definitely improved my mood. I wouldn't say it sort of has drastically improved anything, but my quality of life has been improved a decent bit.
How does that go? Can we role play a session? Can I pretend to be you and you can be the...
Well, you see, I'm not going to lie. It's about an hour-long session, and about half an hour to 40 minutes every week, we discuss various foods.
I see.
We had a 20-minute...
being a very favourite topic of yours, Pete.
Well, of course. We had like a 20-minute conversation about donuts once.
Wow.
But, yes. But
it's taxpayer money there.
It's basically... you go in and they get you to sort of describe your week, see if you've had any major problems arise, like any major events that might make it worse, and then you sort of move on. Well, one week we went and It was just a couple of weeks before when our lovely little cat Jazz, who I'm not sure if she's made an appearance, meowing in the background.
I don't think
I
she
haven't
has,
heard her.
actually.
I haven't.
No.
Oh,
She's a very vocal cat.
well, that is a shame. Yes, it's a beautiful meow. She went missing for 5 days, and that's considered quite the stressor.
Well, she was
Really?
very
Yeah.
young as well at the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Should be said. She was only a very, really young kitten.
fortunately, it seems she just got locked in somewhere, but very
she made it
hungry,
back.
very
I was quite
very
impressed
meowy
with
cat.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Made it
that was
back
quite
after
the
5
night.
days.
6 a.m. Yeah. So yeah, that was like considered a stressor. So that's like an example, but obviously anything to do with family members, perhaps if a family member's died, or there was actually one huge like downward spiral I had that was triggered by, I don't know if I want to tell that story now, because if there's an arachnophobe watching it,
Okay,
I've
all
lost.
arachnophobes leave immediately.
Yeah,
Don't come
I've
back.
lost sleep because of stories I've heard about spiders. It's not
Go
fun.
on, go on. They've
So-
left now.
Right, they've left. Yeah, so I was, lying in bed, felt something tickle my leg. I thought I get that quite a lot. It's like nerves, not being able to see. It's the anxiety, but it was really persistent. So I eventually checked, and it
And luckily,
was.
you didn't see that it was me. And you mistook it for a
Yes.
spider.
Exactly. It definitely wasn't a huge house spider that was sprinting around my bed underneath the
Sprinting
duvet.
around.
It was. It did. Like everybody thought, because I freaked out. I jumped out of the bed. Yeah, I leapt onto the floor, smashed into my computer, made an almighty wallop.
I remember this event.
Yeah, everybody came running because obviously they love me dearly. And they didn't believe me because it was nowhere to be seen. Well, it was doing laps of my mattress. Yeah.
I guess there's sort of a spider Grand Prix.
Oh, well, this one could have bloody won it. It was quite possibly the most anxiety-provoking
Speed isn't
moment.
the only important factor in a Grand Prix. You have to have the handling correct. You've got to get your overtake strategies.
Good brakes.
Good brakes.
A good pit crew.
Good pit. Yeah, did he have a good pit crew?
No, he didn't. He got sucked up into a Hoover device and chucked out the window. So, yeah.
That's quite a sad ending.
So, that's quite the stressor.
Of a
we got a bit off topic racer there, I think.
So, does the cognitive behavioural complex theory therapy help?
So that's going to depend on the person. Some people aren't open to it. It is basically just talking. For me, it helps to a point. Like if something like that incident happens and I'm completely spiraled, I can sort of talk it out. And you do need to do that when it's something that's quite stressful to you, quite traumatic.
And is it an active conversation, or is it essentially you talking? You could be talking to a pillow,
Well, for me personally, if it was not an active conversation, it would be worthless. But I think some people do sort of need to talk at someone.
Yeah.
But I personally, if I'm just talking at someone, I just think they've lost the track and just not really bothered. So it wouldn't do it for me. Yeah. But like you'd talk about that. You talk about the whatever stresses there may have been in your week since they last saw you. And then you move on to your sort of treatment plan and sort of recap the plan, which for me was discussing the sort of easiest things to cut down on. Okay. So, like where Shaun cut it out completely, I tried that in the past. That did not work for me because every time, after about 3 or 4 things that were quite minuscule, you'd move on to the 5th one, and I'd noticed the first one start coming back.
So can we use heroin as an analogy?
I would love to.
Sean's went cold turkey. He threw all his heroin into the nearest lake.
No, I didn't go completely cold turkey, because I still do stuff now. I never stopped counting. I never stopped.
He went room temperature turkey.
He
Basically
he keeps a little vial of heroin under his pillow at night.
Yes, yeah. No, basically, I just stopped touching stuff. Touching.
You
rituals.
internalized it, I think, from stories I've heard.
And then it was basically just the touching sort of stuff that I tried to get rid of. I never really tried to get rid of any of the rest because that doesn't really affect me. I'd just be like, I'm going to sit on this sofa that a visitor sat on yesterday. And I feel awful, but I'm going to keep sitting here.
In a way, do you think that you still have sort of OCD, but you're at a point now where you can recognize what you're doing, stop yourself from making illogical decisions?
Every few months something happens and I think, no, this is a terrible habit to get into when I start doing something. You have to catch it early before it takes hold again.
You really do.
And do you still have to fight new incoming impulses, Peter?
All the time. Every time.
Are you fairly successful at that? I noticed you don't do too many new things recently.
I've got used to it, if something feels a bit weird, like for instance, if a tap has, let's say, a little bit of soap on it, I have to sort of fight back the urge to sort of create a new ritual to deal with that.
Yeah. Which you've been doing a very good job at, I think. Really, I've only noticed sort of your usual sort of things going on.
They almost seem normal now.
Yeah, they do, which is a bit of a problem, I guess, for us as well. Maybe we should be picking you up a bit more now. I don't know.
Oh, God, please don't.
No, you might get a hernia if you try picking him up.
That's true. Yeah. Peter is potentially going
sumo
to become
champion,
a pro sumo wrestler. Isn't that right, Pete?
Oh, if I can eat as much as you say I can, I'm down.
He's down.
You just got to be able to be naked or semi-naked and touch a lot of random
as long
stuff.
as I don't
touch
have to
some
move.
Sweaty men. Can you touch some sweaty men?
Well, could I just get fat enough that I could just sit in the ring and they could bounce off of me?
You can, but you would probably not be very good.
No, you're not allowed. There's a rule. That's why you're not allowed to touch because you can't sit on.
Hang on. What's the rule if you're standing up on your 2 feet as high up as you can, but you're so obese that your sort of folds are hitting the floor at the same time?
You're sitting on your own fat. I don't think
that is a technical term, yes.
Reach that level of enormity.
Let's get this sorted out. I need this rule clarified.
Yes,
I have 4 pizzas.
I'm writing an email right now to the Sumo Association.
In Japanese?
Oh, that is some good typing.
Yeah.
Great.
No, it's in English. So they have translators.
I don't think they do. All right. Well, any other questions, Shaun?
Yeah, I can keep going. Unless you've got somewhere to be, James.
Well, you've got the early bird special in an hour.
We've got a quiz going on.
We do.
Busy people.
We kept it. No, as a final closing statement. No, a final question, Peter.
Right, okay, yeah.
Sorry,
we're skipping over the best segment of the entire podcast there for a second.
I thought we were in court then for a second. It happens to be sometime.
Order.
Yes, Your Honour. No, it's happening again. Where? No, I'll rephrase the question, even though I hadn't asked it.
Overruled.
Yes, Your Honour.
Sustained.
See me in chambers afterwards.
Yes,
I'm on my way.
Right, Peter. Forgotten the question. Hang on, give me a sec. Right. Peter, Do you set goals for yourself, whether they're weekly, monthly, yearly? And do you have any currently?
Do you mean personal goals or goals to do with the OCD?
Well, I was going to say to do with OCD, but if you have any personal goals, I didn't think you did. But
Well, that is very
sure.
rude. As you know, you forced me to get into exercising.
I did, yes.
So there are some goals around that. But when it comes to the OCD, I have to be spontaneous. If I set something and I say I'm going to do this on that day, let's say it's in 2 weeks' time, I will spend those 2 weeks building it into such a huge thing that I ultimately fail. No matter how easy, I will make it seem impossible. So I have to be extremely spontaneous and seize the moment, really, when I feel able to.
It's, I guess, overthinking is the biggest curse of OCD at root cause, really. Not cause.
You just stop thinking. What are you doing?
Yeah, honestly.
So you don't have any goals for like a year's time, for example?
I would like to go on a Henka Boys tour by the end of the year.
Perhaps by the end of this year?
Yes. Go and hand out merch in London. Something like that, you know. Henka Boys shirts.
Well, you've better, sure.
What?
That's a good goal to have.
The world's first Henka Boys convention will, of course, be taking place.
Henk Con, as it will be known.
Never. Yeah,
Henka Con.
No, it's got to be Henkon, like it's using the C as the K.
There's no
it's all one word.
There's no
the K is the C. The K is the C. I mean,
it's just HENK. He suggests
Henkon.
We'll probably have to double check that doesn't mean anything incredibly rude in Japanese before we do that.
Nah, I don't think we
we'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know what they say, why check the trademarks? Coming at you by Coca-Cola Inc.
That is what they say, indeed, yes. Closing statements aside, do you have any closing statements,
Shaun.
Peter?
Shaun, important subject here. Henkon does have a meaning in Japanese, according to Google.
It does?
Strange computer.
Oh, that is perfect.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I like
quite
it.
Good. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Right, closing statements.
Peter, as the guest, we think you should have the honour of a closing statement. Address our audience.
Overturned. Shaun, go first.
Okay, by going first, I'm going to ask our guest a question and ask him to address our audience. And I want you to tell them what you think they should take away from this episode to do with being more accepting and understanding of people in your situation.
Well, I shall address the Henka homies then. That's their name, I've made them.
Okay.
So Henka homies.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, they love it. I can tell you to love it. Yeah, I knew you'd hate that.
I'd like to remind our listeners that Peter will not be a permanent fixture on this podcast.
He may never, in fact, appear again.
Are not representative of the Henka Boys.
Rude.
Continue.
Thank you. It's very easy when somebody says, "Oh yeah, I know what you're feeling." You know, you can just reply that like, "Oh, I'm having a real tough time with my OCD." Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Try and think more about that. Don't just say that, because while it is a harmless sort of seemingly helpful thing to say, it's actually very frustrating because you don't really have any idea.
It makes light of a serious problem, basically.
Yes.
It's annoying to you, I guess, when somebody claims that says they have a bit of OCD, but you've been struggling with it for the past 20 years and it's consumed your entire life.
Exactly. And they're like, oh, my books, they're in alphabetical order. So I know what you mean when you say you can't leave the house. And it's like, yeah, all right. Yep, get that. And you just sort of have to move past it and sort of realise that they mean well. But it just is quite a frustrating statement that seems harmless.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be the main thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fair
and
enough.
thank you for having me, Henka homies.
I suppose that brings to a conclusion the main event.
It does, I guess.
Yeah. And it means we've come at last to the incredible fact of the day.
Oh, yes.
Which today isn't that incredible.
Oh.
Nor is it a fact. No, it is a fact. I assume. I don't go that so far into detail with these incredible facts that I can fact check every single thing about them, to be honest. Snakes. Ears.
Ears?
Where is on snake? This was the question I asked
they're
myself.
They're the little holes behind the eyes, aren't they?
No. Well,
No.
maybe not. I'm not sure. But they're not actually ears. However, they're not deaf either. Incredible, I know. Snakes.
Actually, there is more. I was wondering if that
was it. I thought that was going to be it.
Snakes actually have small, not ears, but a series of like rudimentary hearing apparatus attached to their jawbones, so they can feel vibrations in the ground. But if you were to play a sound from above them that wasn't loud enough to shake the ground, they wouldn't be able to hear you.
Really?
Yeah.
How interesting.
So they do that, and because of that, the sort of hissing sound that snakes make.
Yes.
Other snakes can't really hear that, so this hissing is entirely for the benefit of potential predators. It's to tell them to go away. Yeah.
I have heard before, when it comes to snake charming, that it is the motion of the end of the flute or pipe that they're playing rather than the sound that charms them. I guess this would be why.
I think I know a little bit about snake charming. I think I know one of the main reasons is they select snakes, the sort of snakes that rise up to like hiss and bite you when you're threatening them. They use those kind of snakes like cobras, but they just sew the mouths shut so they can't hiss or bite. They still perform the same motion of rising up to you at sort of eye level because they feel like they're being threatened.
Well, that's just sad.
That's
depressing.
Let's just pretend it's the motion
depressing.
Of the flute.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And all snakes that are being charmed love it and live a very long and fulfilling life.
Yes. They get to retire in luxury in a mansion in Cuba.
Yeah, and their mouths are not sewn shut. Well, how was the incredible facts of the day? Any good? I know it's a bit bad compared to the other ones.
It's quite emotional.
I thought the delivery was exquisite.
Yes, well, that went without saying.
Yes, but I feel like it should be said, otherwise you will forget.
That's fair enough. I accept that.
Forget what? What?
What? All right, Shaun, where can people reach us if they want to reach out and grab us physically or digitally?
Well,
Abracadabra.
if you want to do it physically, then possibly contact a therapist. If you want to do it online, you can find us in all the usual places. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, you're on YouTube. You can find us. And if no one else can help you, you can hire the Henka Boys.
The Henka
No, but
Boys. We don't have a
Please do get in
jingle yet.
touch. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's negative.
And they had me on the
especially if
show,
it's
so
negative.
you've got a chance.
We're
Well, that's
dying
why
for
we brought you
interaction.
on, just to basically
Set the
fish
bar
for-
low. Yeah.
We're just fishing for comments, negative comments, anything. It's all good for online visibility.
Yep.
Any visibility is good visibility.
Any negativity is good positivity, so let's do
Except
it.
when it comes to body positivity. And on that note,
Positivity.
it's goodbye from Peter.
Woo! Goodbye.
It's goodbye from me. Goodbye. And it's goodbye from James.
Goodbye, and it's goodbye from Shaun.
Goodbye.